I'm Mr. MegaManFan. Welcome back to Genesis Does, and today we're going to be talking about Exosquad. This is a game based on a TV series that ran for 2 seasons on Universal Family Network and was canceled before a third was ever produced. Reruns eventually aired on USA Network. Now, the game itself commands a premium as a late Genesis release from May of 1995, so I've always been a little reluctant to buy something that goes complete in box for $30 to $40. I'm not 100% opposed to buying loose Genesis cartridges. It's just that when I buy something that I've never had before, I prefer it to be complete. Whereas if I got something in a lot and it was just a random loose cartridge thrown in, then I would probably live with it. To be honest, after reviewing it, I don't even know whether I would want it loose or complete because there are some things that I like about it, some things that I don't, and some that are just really over the top. This game is actually trying to do too many things at once, and I think that's a bit the fault of the TV series itself, which also seemed to be trying to do too many things at once. It had time travel, it had slavery, it had interplanetary war. There was a lot of big concepts in the show, and I'm not sure it ever found an audience with so much going on, which is probably why it got canceled after only 2 seasons. Critical reviews of the TV show seem to be fairly high, though. It has 100% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes as of the recording of this review, so those who did see it liked it a lot, which is exactly the opposite of the video game because those who played it gave it incredibly low scores and called it a poor game. As you can see here, we've got a Space Harrier-like section. We've also got a side-scrolling mech section where you have to shoot down enemies that are approaching you. And there's even a third section with platforming that I never quite got to because of the second mission, which you'll see in a little bit. So if I can sum up the plot of this game very briefly, and I do mean briefly because like I said, there is a whole lot going on in this show. Humanity decided to create a race of creatures solely for indentured servitude, and they called them Neo-Sapiens, like new human beings, Neo-Sapien instead of Homo Sapien. And as you would expect, when one race is indentured to another race, they get sick of that shit after a while and say, no thanks, we would rather be free, and they rebelled against it. It also reminds me of the artwork from the Space Ace game on Super Nintendo, which was not very good compared to Don Bluth's full cell animation that was done for the arcade game. And when you're reminding me of how disappointing a Super Nintendo game was compared to a Laserdisc, that's probably going to say this is also disappointing for people who watch the animated Exosquad series compared to the video game. I can't think they would have found this satisfying. What really makes this game frustrating, though, is not the overarching plot or the fact that it's trying to juggle so many different things. It's that the controls are not necessarily suited for all of the things they're trying to do. To their credit, each different mission that you perform, they explain right from the beginning, this button controls this function, this button controls that function. They don't even make you read the manual to do all that. So A+ to Appaloosa Entertainment for having that much foresight to know that there might be loose cartridges at some point, but at the same time, what they want you to do with those controls doesn't necessarily work out. When you have Space Harrier controls for a forward progression 3-dimensional shooting section, it should be very easy to move up, down, left, and right, and your firing should be somewhat generous in the hitboxes because of difficulty of aiming at things in 3D space on a 8 or 16-bit platform. And instead, you just get whacked with missiles repeatedly. Even when you seem to be attacking the things that are flying in your direction, it never works out as well as you would actually hope. And then the next part, which is actually more fun, but probably more tedious. When you're walking from left to right, you have a very variable degree of direction that you shoot. Your gun on your mech doesn't just go 45 degrees, 90 degrees, 30 degrees. It allows you to fine-tune the direction, and it gives you two crosshairs to do that. But a Sega Genesis D-pad is not good for precision aiming. If you had an analog stick, that would make sense because you could aim with the finite control of pushing the analog stick a little or a lot in any direction that you want. But when you're trying to do it with a D-pad, it's very awkward and clumsy and not a lot of fun. It's also tedious because it's so unremarkable in the enemies. There are things that walk toward you on the ground. There are things that fly at you. And you just aim and shoot and aim and shoot and aim and shoot and aim and shoot. And once in a while you pick up a power-up that restores your health. But there's no variability in that. You just methodically move from left to right, shooting down things until you get to a boss at the end. And when you get to that boss, if you die, you do the whole mission over again. There are no save checkpoints. There is no progression. Even though there's a password system, and you would think they would have thought of that maybe you shouldn't have to redo the whole thing, because why else would they put passwords in there? They don't have the same foresight when it comes to the actual side-scrolling mech combat. They make you redo the entire thing if you die right at the end. And it was at that point that I said, enough's enough. I am not repeating that whole mission again. I realized it had not saved any of my progression, and I hit pause and I called it a day. So, in summary, I don't think Exosquad is as terrible as it got reviewed for back in the day, but I think having some checkpoints in the second mission would have given me the incentive to actually play my way through to the third mission. And I think had they based it on a property that wasn't so convoluted with multiple different things, space pirates, enslaved beings, time travel, they could have had a more focused video game instead of going, we need to have all these different kinds of missions in the game because of the variability of the property it's based on. We have to make a game that's equally variable in its approach to gameplay. They were ambitious, but I don't think the series was enough of a success to merit those ambitions, and I don't think the skill with which they approached it was up to the task and made it worthwhile. It was a good effort, but it falls a little bit short. It's not the worst thing I've ever played. It's just far from the best. And if it wasn't $30 to $40 complete, I would probably want a copy. But Exosquad is going to stay in that pile of things that I go, well, if I ever find it at a garage sale for a couple bucks, I'll pick it up. But it's not a must-have. It's average to maybe slightly above average. It's not terrible. It's just not, it's not a gem. It's not something you should run out to get right away. It's definitely worth playing around with in emulation, so see what you think of it, and if you have any memories of Exosquad, feel free to share them with me, because I was around for the 90s, and I do not ever remember seeing this show once. So it's really not a surprise that the game goes for $35 to $40 now, considering I don't think they sold many copies of it. I doubt the show is a hit, and probably that's why the game was not a hit either. I'm Mr. MegaManFan, this is Genesis Does, and as always, thank you for watching. Like, share, subscribe, it always helps. See you next week.